Welcome to Tiny Studio Big Ideas podcast, where we dive into the greater realm of creativity and how we can nourish, cultivate, and connect with our creativity whenever we choose to. So, in today's podcast, I wanted to talk about the most dynamic food that you can feed your creative muse. And it's not what you think, right? It is, in fact, something that we don't usually think about and something that we don't usually uh, nourish. It's not something that we accept easily about ourselves. And that nourishment is, in fact, the idea of being good enough. You know, it's good enough. Getting rid of any push towards being better. And for some of us, that push goes all the way to the point of perfectionism, which, in fact, rather than being something that propels us forward, it usually stops us from moving and creating and doing and acting in all areas of our lives. So, uh, cultivating the idea of good enough, what does that mean? And how can you use it in your studio? When I was learning how to paint, when I was in the stages of painting and not being able to create something that looked like a landscape or that looked good enough or that was, something that I could sell or it would go in a gallery or anything. I mean, before I was anywhere near there, I had to really stop and look at myself and understood that. And I'll tell you where I got this idea, because at the same time I was involved in an online group, and it really helped me in my studio. So I'll hook up with that in just a second. But I came to the idea that just coming into my studio and doing, acting on my artwork and the growth that I was after was enough. It was good enough. If I wasn't creating fabulous paintings, I was still in my art studio creating a painting that was good enough. It wasn't sellable. It wasn't anything that was of very much value or worth, but it was good enough. And what did that do for me? That helped me learn. It helped me accept and allow the things that weren't perfect, that weren't great. It helped me see and understand that it's quite okay that I am an average artist, that maybe I have some talent, maybe not, and that alone doesn't matter. I'll get to that in another podcast. The idea of if you're talented or not, if you have any talent. Uh, and uh, uh, and by the way, up short, talent has little to do with creating beautiful paintings. Seriously, it really does. It has hardly anything to do with creating art. So at that time, my daughters were 7, 8 years old when I picked up my paintbrushes again after many, 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 many years. And you know, as a mom and as a perfectionist, I was oftentimes stuck in a pattern of letting the house get to be a mess, sloppy, not putting away the clothes. I never made the bed. I mean, there was all these things to do, but I didn't do that. And then after a few days, I would dive in and do this massive cleaning, this, day-long, exhaustive restructuring and reframing and getting the house back into shape. And then, the days would go by and the dishes would pile up and the floor would not be swept or mopped, and clothes piling here and there, and not just my clothes, everybody else's clothes. And so it was kind of hectic. And I don't know how I came across the Fly Lady. So Fly Lady is what she goes by. Flylady.net was her website. And she had this email group because that's what was big at the time. And I signed up on the email group and was getting this reestablishment within my mind that when you clean your house, I mean, you do it every day. You come into your studio every day and you pick up your house every day. So even if it's just for 15 minutes, and it didn't have to be perfect, good enough was the pathway to create a pattern, and an acceptable pattern within me, that every day for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes before I went to bed, all I needed to do was just these basic things, and my house would be in order. Not nitpicky, shiny, clean. You could lick the floor and be okay, but everything in order, everything looking good. When you walked into a room, you felt nice. And I took the lessons that I learned while I was following the Fly Lady steps, right? Of letting go of perfectionism, which is diving in and scrubbing the floors once a week, or trying to get the house clean in one day, and moving into the good enough stage of keeping the house clean 15 minutes a day. And I took that idea and brought it into the studio. I did the same thing. I came into my studio every day with the idea that I did not have to create a masterpiece every day in my studio. All I needed to do was paint. And that painting, the act of creating the painting, was good enough. Sometimes the painting turned out great. Sometimes the painting did not. It didn't matter. I was in there and it was good enough. And what did that do? This is what I found that was really exciting to me, because I am a yoga, I have a yoga history. I'm a yoga teacher. I study meditation and the asanas and the whole philosophy. And for me, the act of coming into my studio and allowing things to be good enough brought me immediately into a state of presence, a state of allowing the day to happen in the studio. And that is the nourishment for your creativity. That was the way for me to open, allow, relax into whatever the day was going to bring me. Whatever my emotional, mental, physical state was, however I was connecting or not to my inner creative flow, just being there with the idea of good enough, that this is good enough. Even if I come in and just mix 3 colors on my palette, and that's all I did that day, that was good enough, because coming into the studio, even for 15 minutes to mix 3 colors or to put a wash on a canvas, was good enough for that day. And then I could spend the rest of the time doing the other things that I needed to do. But I brought this fly lady practice for my home into my work, into my studio, and it was a godsend. It was and still is my creativity's favorite meal. This idea of being good enough, that it's okay. I can paint something that's not working. My cloud paintings over here are not working. They're good enough. And you know why they're good enough? Not to sell. I'm not going to sell them. They're good enough because even though I painted them and they didn't turn out beautifully, like I really like my tree painting here. That turned out a beautiful little painting. But the one next to it, the clouds, aren't. There are some, serious things wrong with the composition and with putting that together. But it's good enough. And the good enough is in, number one, the fact that I painted it. I took a blank canvas and created something on it. Number two, by doing so, I became a better painter. And number three, by noticing and understanding the mistakes that I made, I have deepened my creative self, my artistic abilities, to a level that never would have happened if I did not create the painting in the first place. So I hope you can see how these things come together. Good enough. Allow good enough into your studio. That doesn't mean that you won't move forward into becoming a better artist. It is the nourishment that will propel you into being a better artist, because when you allow your mistakes, when you allow average, even if you feel like you're stuck in this average state, one day you are going to wake up and be on a different level. Everything will just click together and you'll be like, oh, I'm here. I did it. I got over that block. How are you going to get over a block in your studio if you're not in your studio actually creating, actually taking the time to explore and stumble and fall and make those terrible mistakes that you make? Love them, because they are, in fact, good enough. Sometimes they're even superb, right? Your good enough painting, these clouds over here, they're good enough, they're okay. But the real juice in them are the mistakes that I made. And some of them, like old mistakes that I make over and over and over again. And that is the juice of the painting. It is again and again the knowledge that if I don't begin a painting with a notan, the painting will never turn out. It might look okay, but it will never be art. And it will never be at the level that I am shooting for. But it's good enough because it's a reminder, again, to be more studious in approaching a painting. All right. So that is pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Love your good enough. Know that good enough is the strongest nourishment for your creativity, for that creative flow. It opens you up because when you accept good enough, you allow space, you allow yourself to grow, you allow yourself to look at the problems in your interpretation of your art. You allow yourself to give some room and space to find ways to overcome these problems. And as a result, you become a better artist. So that's about it. I'm going to let you go with that. Please go to my website and send me a message, send me an email if you have any questions. Leave a comment if you want to hear me talk about some things that are of interest to you. Let me know what they are, and I will happily provide you with the information that I can provide you with. And be sure to subscribe. And so you know when my next podcast comes out. I would love to have you on my email newsletter where I offer a lot of special discounts on paintings, on courses. You get a little taste of life here on the island, and creating community. Community is especially important for me because I live in a very, very rural place. I don't have the common daily explorations into the city where you get to see all these new people and experience new things. You know, my life is pretty quiet. So this community is a godsend. Thank you very much for being here and for supporting me. I appreciate you all. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.